definition in progress. Martin Daly?
Yes, it is too wide because of the presence of that wrap-up provision for offences that carry a term of imprisonment more than 5 years. Outside of that, I'm not so disturbed, probably because I was involved in the consultation on the interception of communications. I don't know if there's time for me to make one little point. Rhoda, of course, just set out the terms of reference or the scope of work for an independent senator doing their job properly, not to raise your pet peeves and all that kind of thing. But the problem we see is also that over time, the type of person that the government and the opposition are putting in the parliament are much more heavily partisan. They used to make some very cerebral appointments. In other words, I could be affiliated to be a particular party, but be a little more cerebral and a little less aggressive and so on. And so that is the other problem we are having in the Senate, that by and large, the Senate, with one or two very notable exceptions, is being used as a place to reward people for supporting the party, whether, and I like the word misfit, whether they fit in the Senate or not. And so to use Isaac Carter's famous phrase, the brandy is being watered. And it's being watered not because the people are not competent, but maybe their competences don't lie in being in a legislative chamber that is supposed to be a review chamber, not a rehash of the same old arguments in the House of Representatives.
Martin Daly, thank you. Let me go across. Rhoda, do you think it's too wide?
In terms of how they're defining serious crime, I think that, I'm basically in agreement with Martin, because I followed the debate from start to now, to this week when it was passed, and I've read the legislation, looked at things, listened to a number of the arguments, and asked a couple of questions myself. And that business of any offences, with a term of 5 years or more, I think it allows for a wide gap of people that can just be, surveilled and for no, and it would be questionable as to whether or not they're really posing a threat to the state. You understand?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
that has to be the test.
Yes, exactly. To me, that has to be the criteria.
To have these heavy powers.
Yes, it has to be the criteria that these people pose some sort of threat to the state.
10 minutes away from 12 o'clock, Martin Daly in his column today praised Sunity Maharaj as one of the people who, along with him, very early questioned the issue of the integrity of the media because of the HDC houses that were given out. He was scathing on some of the apologists who seek to justify it. Part of getting this media body that is so important to every democracy, Sunity, in the right place is going to be some body that is a watchdog, some umbrella body for journalists that are standing up and saying this is wrong. What happened in the HDC instance, if it is true that a number of journalists got the opportunity to jump spaces to get their houses, this is something that the association has to stand up, any association, some association, and condemn, is it not?
Well, yes, but there are two associations, the Publishers and Broadcasters, the Media Association, and then there are the publishers, the employers, the editors, everybody that journalists have no special dispensation to some right above the average person who's in a line for a house.
Right.
There's no basis for saying, except access, which is a corruption. And the ex-minister of housing said that. He said, journalists approach me and I help them.
You said access is a corruption.
Yes, exploiting access. Right?
Exploiting the access.
Exploiting the access is a corruption because you have access for the purpose of doing your job, not for peddling your cause. And so that has turned into...
Yeah, but people, you see, the government has so many things it can give you. Some people stay quiet because they want a PBR pass. So the whole society has to look at itself and understand that if it keeps selling out, whether it's for the biblical mess of pottage or 30 pieces of silver or a Porsche or a big contract, the damage that is being done to the society is going to afflict everybody in the long run.
But then that's independent responsibility as well. That's independent responsibility as well. Because for the life of me, I don't understand how it's possible for I don't understand how it is possible for somebody to enter into a career and decide that they're going to be selling out in a particular way. And I had this conversation privately this morning where I said that I think a number of young journalists, or let me not even say young journalists, because there are veteran journalists that fall into the category as well. There are a number of journalists that have gotten into journalism not because of the career itself, but because they see it as a step up. It's a way to be able to trade favors and to access the career as a step up in society. And that ties right back into what you were saying earlier, Martin, about people's choice of lifestyle and how they plan to finance that lifestyle.
But the whole society wants to live according to the lifestyle.
Bling,
that
bling, Martin, bling. Everybody wants bling.
I use the word all the time, and everybody has an aspiration to live as though they're living in the best part of South Florida. And if that is their aspiration, then they surrender much more easily. If they have more modest, good, but more modest aspirations, then we have much less of a problem. But the whole bling lifestyle has been sold. That's why we are roping carnival bands and people playing on truck, going back to playing on truck.
The sustainability.
The whole society is being carved up according to these lifestyle aspirations.
For this democracy to continue, any democracy to continue, we must have a very trustworthy media organization. From what we are saying here, if I extrapolate it correctly, is that the two existing bodies are failing. Is that what we're saying?
And the media
Well, to be fair to Matt, they did put out a reasonable statement about the house.
The point about independent responsibility, which is the journalist has a responsibility, it's not it can't be the only point of responsibility. People don't give themselves jobs as journalists. They are screened, interviewed, and then they are managed. If you got somebody, if you hired somebody, and you've decided you've gone through the process, you must know what your ideal candidate is, what level of understanding, training, and so on. And there is the job of managing that person. If there is a bad apple, the person who comes in and you see the way they operate and you hear the contacts and the conversation, your job is to manage that person out of the profession, whether you're a lawyer, a doctor, a journalist, or whatever. So I don't think it's enough to say that people are coming in and it's up to them to abide by the code of ethics. It is up to them to do so, but it's up to the management and the editors and the rest of the profession, which also are the representative bodies, to ensure that the values are sustained and promoted, and that where they infringe, where those values are infringed, that you act. All of these media houses have codes of conduct and ethics,
But they've closed up shop over this. They resolutely refuse to deal with it.
And what happens when the editors don't, the editors aren't pulling their weight, the managing directors are not pulling their weight. We end up in a situation where, the entire thing has just collapsed from top down.
And that is why I talk about the state of the media, because we are in an institutional crisis regarding the media. And the last government did its level best. It understood the weaknesses. It exploited the weaknesses. What they understood, most of all, is you don't attack the media like Panda did directly. There are other forms of attack, and other forms of attack is seduction. It's the trolls.
There's slut shaming on social media.
All
as
of
well.
that is going on. So, and you stay with your hands clean, but you're paying the piper.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So we have one day somebody's going to study the impact over the past 5 years on what was left of the media, because it wasn't perfect before then. But there has been a tremendous damage. And what we have today leads me almost to the same way Rhoda says she doesn't pay attention to the opposition, but I say they represent people. You have to not pay attention in a way, even though I read everything and consume it. I think the mainstream traditional media I'm beginning to think it's over.
Martin Daly, I should actually start posing this to Rhoda, but I'm gonna start with you. Because of what we have articulated here, enter the void, social media, new media as it were. Do you pay attention to it, the credibility of it? How do you see it stepping in, filling this void?
Well, of course I have to pay attention to it, but the first problem is it gives an anonymity that permits people who are misguided to create all kinds of mischief. So again, it's something we have to view in a balanced way. But of course, I have to pay attention to social media. You can't be a commentator or not. But the point about it is, again, because of lifestyle aspirations and the age of vanity, which is another thing we could spend an hour talking about, the social media does good things and bad things, but we have to pay attention to it.
Rhoda?
Good things and bad things, just as Martin has said. I mean, I think I make an effort to be as informed as possible. I don't know that I can always say that I am unbiased, but I certainly make an effort to be as informed as possible. And I think that is why my comment about independent, your independent code of ethics is extremely important. Because for the life of me, I'm not being paid to do anything that I do on Facebook, even though there are lots of people that think that, I have HDC houses left, right, and center.
Let me know about that. This is news.
So I've been told. I've been
Well,
told
I don't
that.
mind if you have them, but for goodness sake, live in it and don't rent it
Oh
out.
God, well,
Hello.
Martin, exactly, right? So so there are all of those allegations that are thrown out there because people can do that, right? They can attack you in that way, but you have to make an effort, and you also have to decide, well, okay, all right, this is. If I'm going to be saying these things, this is how I'm backing up what I'm saying. It's one thing to have an opinion. Everybody can have an opinion. But how are you supporting it? How are you substantiating
But
it?
you're not operating under a veil of
I know.
anonymity.
You
are
I
out
go,
there saying,
I'm out there. This is
here.
my face and this is my name and I am here. And so I'm very much my persona on Facebook. I don't have multiple personas.
Sunity stepping into the void, filling the void, new media.
Yeah. So the traditional old media is under control of special interests of all kinds. And now those special interests have moved into the social media space where you have things that look like journalism. They walk like journalism, but you don't see any names.